Can you mate multiple times without your tool breaking? That's impossible, said the alien girl. Elias Rourke stood quietly inside the wide glass hall of the Catherine Academy, his hands folded behind his back. The ceiling above him curved like a frozen wave, glowing with soft blue light. Around him, dozens of alien scholars watched from their floating seats. Their bodies were tall and slender, their skin smooth like polished stone, their eyes large and unblinking. This was supposed to be a simple cultural exchange. Elias had been sent as a human observer, not a warrior, not a diplomat of power. Humanity wanted peace, knowledge, and trade. Cathra was famous for its advanced science and calm society. They believed in balance above all things. But balance, Elias had learned, meant something very different to them. Cyril stood near the center platform, her long silver markings glowing faintly as she spoke. She was young by Catherine standards but already respected. A researcher, curious, sharp-minded, and very confident. "So you claim," Cyril said, her voice calm but edged with disbelief, "that humans can repeat bonding cycles many times without biological failure. With rest, care, and health, humans can recover and continue. Repeated use causes damage. That is universal law." Cyril's eyes narrowed. "You speak as if weakness is strength. Yet every system has limits. Your records show humans push their bodies repeatedly. Work, conflict, reproduction, survival under extreme stress. How does your species not collapse? We care for each other, we adapt. What do you propose?" "Human Elias," the counselor asked, "will you submit to non-invasive endurance evaluation? Temperature shifts, oxygen changes, gravity variation." Elias sat calmly as the chamber adjusted around him. Cyril watched closely from behind the glass. His heart rate rose, then settled. His breathing slowed. He drank water when allowed. He rested when permitted. "He pauses," one observer noted. "Yes," Cyril said slowly, "but he recovers faster than expected." "No," Cyril corrected, "that is intentional. Human muscle fibers repaired with stress. Neural pathways strengthened through repetition. Emotional bonds improved recovery rates." "This makes no sense," she murmured. "Catherines avoided stress entirely. They designed life to never strain their systems. As a result, their tolerance was low. Humans were the opposite. During a rest cycle, Cyril approached Elias directly. "Why do you endure pain?" she asked. Elias thought for a moment. "Because stopping forever is worse. Your species accepts damage." "Resource miscalculation," a counselor announced. "Growth decline accelerating. We are too optimized." "But we learned." They suggested redundancy, rest cycles, emotional support systems, allowing small failures instead of preventing all of them. The ideas felt wrong to Catherines, yet the data worked. Cyril watched human medical teams encourage recovery instead of avoidance. They spoke of family units, shared burden, long-term bonds. She remembered her own words. "Your tool will break." Late one cycle, Cyril stood beside Elias at the observation window, watching the city lights stabilize. "I was wrong," she said quietly. Elias did not smile. "Most progress starts there. There's more." She sat alone in her research chamber, surrounded by floating data screens. Lines of numbers drifted past her eyes, glowing softly in the blue light. Human recovery curves, stress adaptation charts, emotional stabilization markers. None of it matched Catherine's science. According to everything she had been taught, Elias should have failed by now. His body had been stressed again and again. His mind had been pushed, his limits tested. Yet he remained stable. More than that, he was improving. "This should not be possible," Cyril whispered. On Cathara, life was designed to avoid strain. From birth, every citizen lived within carefully controlled limits. Pain was minimized, risk was reduced, repetition was avoided. And now, for the first time in recorded history, that perfection was becoming a weakness. The population regulation system continued to flicker. It did not fail completely, but its predictions were wrong. Birth rates declined. Recovery rates slowed. The balance Cathara depended on was slipping. The council called an emergency session. Alie stood once again in the great glass hall. This time the air felt different, less curiosity, more urgency. "Human Alias," the senior counselor said, "your species survives conditions that would end us. We require deeper understanding. We request extended observation, not only endurance but recovery under repeated cycles. You understand this will be harder." Physical work followed by mental challenges. Environmental stress layered over problem solving. He grew tired. His movements slowed. His voice grew quieter. Cyril watched closely, waiting for collapse. Instead, Elias adjusted. When his hands shook, he rested longer. When his focus faded, he stopped and ate. When frustration rose, he breathed slowly until it passed. "He is regulating himself," a researcher noted. "Yes," Cyril said, "he is listening to his limits." That difference mattered. Days passed. Elias failed some cycles. He openly admitted it. "I need more time," he said once. The Catharans recorded the statement as weakness. But the next cycle, Elias performed better. Cyril began to see the pattern. Failure did not reduce human capability. It increased it. During a shared rest period, Cyril approached him again. "Does it not trouble you," she asked, "to fail so often?" "It troubles me when I don't learn." Another alert sounded through the academy. This time, louder. Population decline had accelerated. Resource distribution models no longer aligned with reality. The system that controlled reproduction timing had become too rigid to respond. "Our people cannot recover fast enough," a counselor said grimly. "Our biology resists change." "We require human insight," the senior counselor said. "Your species forms long-term bonds, repeats life cycles. How do you prevent collapse?" "And then we rebuild." Human scientists joined Catharan teams. They spoke of redundancy, backup systems, allowing small failures so larger ones never happen. "Let some systems bend," one human engineer explained, "so none of them break." Cyril observed human caregivers working with Catharan citizens affected by stress for the first time in their lives. Humans encouraged rest without shame, effort without fear, trying again without punishment. "These emotions," a Catharan medic said confused, "they are unstable." Emotional bonds encouraged instead of minimized. The system resisted, but the people adapted. Cyril stood on a balcony overlooking the city, watching citizens move with uncertainty and hope. Elias joined her. "You are changing everything," she said. "We're showing options," he replied. "You choose." Humans did not rely on unbreakable systems. They relied on repair. A junior researcher rushed toward them. "The decline has slowed," he said. "Recovery indicators are rising." That night Cyril recorded a personal log, something rare in Catharan culture. "We believed endurance was foolish," she spoke softly. "We believed repetition led to ruin. Humans have shown us that care, rest, and shared burden transform strain into strength. Their tools do not last because they are perfect," she continued. "They last because humans learn when to stop, when to heal, and when to begin again." They watched with respect. Cyril met his gaze across the room. Part 2 of understanding was complete. And Cathara, for the first time in its long history, was no longer afraid of breaking, because it had finally learned how to recover. The changes on Cathara did not come gently. At first, they came like small cracks in crystal quiet, almost invisible. Then the cracks spread. Cyril stood inside the central monitoring chamber, watching the city-wide data stream. Recovery indicators were improving, but something else was rising with them. Uncertainty. Catharans were not used to choice. Their lives had always followed perfect curves predicted from birth to final rest. Now those curves were bending. Some citizens adapted, others resisted. This instability is spreading, a senior researcher warned. Emotional variance is exceeding safe parameters. We see stress, conflict, disagreement. Growth is inefficient, the first counselor replied. Yes, Elias agreed, and necessary. Before the council could respond, alarms blared through the chamber. Red light flooded the room. Sector 7 failure, an aide called out. Care network overload, emotional distress clusters forming. Sector 7 housed the oldest citizens, those least adaptable, most dependent on stable systems. They can't handle stress, a medic said urgently. Their biology is rigid. With people, Elias replied, not systems. Elder Catherine sat frozen, overwhelmed by changes they did not understand. Cyril knelt beside one of them, her voice soft. You are safe. It will change, she said, and we will help you through it. That answer spread faster than any algorithm. Hours passed, then days. Sector 7 stabilized, not because the system corrected itself, but because people adapted together. Cyril watched the recovery curves rise again, slower this time but stronger. This is inefficient, a Catherine medic muttered. It's human, Cyril replied. The council reconvened in silence. What happened in Sector 7, the senior counselor said slowly, was not predicted. Our system avoids failure, yet it failed us. Researcher Cyril, he said, you will lead the adaptive integration initiative. Catherine's society experimented with controlled stress, minor challenges, voluntary effort, shared responsibility. Some failed. No one was punished. That alone changed everything. Young Catherines began forming bonds outside calculated compatibility. Families formed not by prediction but by choice. Productivity dipped, happiness rose. Cyril documented it all. The humans accept emotional strain as part of life, she recorded. They do not seek endless use. They seek sustainable repetition, effort followed by rest, strain followed by care. But we fear giving up more. We are learning to survive like them. If it collapsed now, recovery might not be possible. Cyril stood before the main console, hands trembling. We can shut it down, a technician said, but we'll lose prediction control entirely. Do it, she said, the system powered down. For the first time in Catherine history, there was no perfect model guiding them, only people. The hours that followed were chaotic. Citizens made mistakes, some panicked, others stepped forward to help. Human teams worked beside Catherine's, guiding but not controlling. Slowly, stability returned, not the old kind, but a living one. Cyril found Elias at the edge of the city, watching the dawn lights rise. We turned off perfection, she said quietly. Elias smiled faintly. That takes courage. Because we don't stay broken, he replied. Cyril felt the truth of it settle deep within her. Cathera had not become human. It had become resilient. As the sun rose over the crystalline towers, Cyril knew this was only the beginning. Part 3 of understanding was complete. And now the galaxy itself was beginning to notice. The news spread beyond Cathera faster than anyone expected. At first, it came as quiet signals, requests for data, curiosity from nearby systems. Then came observers. Envoys from species that had watched Cathera for centuries without interest now turned their attention toward it. A world that had once been perfect had chosen to change, and it had survived. Cyril stood in the central council hall, now redesigned. The floating seats were gone. Council members sat at the same level, facing one another. It was a small change, but symbolic. Equality encouraged listening. Elias stood beside her, preparing for his final address. His mission was almost complete. Humanity had not come to rule or teach, only to share. The senior counselor spoke first. Cathera has stabilized without predictive control. Growth is uneven, but recovery continues. That alone felt unreal. Beyond the hall's transparent walls, the city moved differently now. Not smoother, not more efficient, but alive. Citizens rested openly when tired. They asked for help. They formed bonds not written in charts. They failed, and they continued. Elias looked at Cyril. "You've done something rare," he said quietly. "We survived," she replied. "That feels rare enough." Its design was sharp, angular, military. The observers from the world of Vector had arrived. "They are not known for patience," a counselor warned. "They respect strength," another added. Cyril's gaze hardened. "Then let them see ours. We abandoned fear. You repeat strain until collapse. That's why we care for them." "You think strength is never bending," she said to the Vectari. "We learned it is bending together." Not about Catherine technology, but about human recovery systems. "How do you rebuild?" they asked. "How do you continue?" "Humans are not strong because they last forever," she said. "They are strong because they know when to stop, when to rest, and when to begin again. Their endurance is not endless use. It is sustainable life." At the spaceport, Cyril stood beside him, watching the human vessel power up. "You came here as an observer," she said. "You leave as a symbol. I once laughed at you. Always repairing." It was not predictable, but it was alive. Children were born without strict scheduling. Elders were cared for through presence, not programs. Failure became a lesson instead of an ending. The Adaptive Integration Initiative became permanent. Cyril was asked to lead interstellar resilience studies. She titled the first report simply, "But they do not rely on endless strength. They rely on care, rest, and connection. They repeat not because nothing breaks, but because everything can be healed." Years later, when Cathra hosted a summit of recovering worlds, Cyril stood before a hall filled with many species. She spoke without fear. "We once believed balance meant control," she said. "Now we know balance means recovery. A human once told us that stopping forever is worse than failing. We tested that truth. We survived it." Humanity had not conquered Cathra. It had taught it how to live. And across the galaxy, other worlds were beginning to understand the same truth. Strength was not never breaking. Strength was always continuing. And that was humanity's quiet gift to the stars.